You're listening to the Black Eagles podcast with Sinan and Kaan Bayazit.
Ahmet Dursun Sergen aldı. Sergen Bülent yan yana. Sergen Bülent. Sergen. Orada Tümer var. Tümer'e doğru aksiyon kaybetti. Tümer topu aldı. Sergen aldı. Gol! Gol! Gol! Sergen attı. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi.
İbrahim'in pası. Roma. Şimdi Ahmet. İkinci gole gidiyor Beşiktaş. Ahmet. Ve
Welcome back, everybody. Beşiktaş International's The Black Eagles podcast. This is episode 66, and I am your host, Sinan, live from New York City. And today we have a special episode, as always bringing something new. And so, because again, time constraints and people on different time zones trying to connect with different schedules, Kaan and I couldn't connect, and this time even Evran and I couldn't connect, as it's a late night here and the young man has to study and get some sleep and all that. But what we did manage to do was get Kaan to speak with Ozcan Uğur, who you all recognize as one of our twins from Twin Talk from Scotland, Glasgow specifically. And so Ozcan and Kaan are going to be taking care of the analysis portion of this episode. So I will kind of bring us through the match proceedings as quick as I can with stadium sound, thanks to Emre Hasturk, as always. He was again at the stadium, and so he's giving us these live sounds, which of course we're thankful for. Keep them coming, Emre. And those are fantastic. But let's get into this. So of course this week Beşiktaş had a huge match playing against Başakşehir, a kind of derby, certainly a match taking place between two Istanbul sides. It was a home match for Beşiktaş, playing at the Vodafone Arena, Vodafone Park. And yeah, it was a very intense match. Two competitive sides going at each other with everything on the line, in theory. Of course, not exactly the case in truth, with Başakşehir far ahead. Going into the weekend, they had an 11-point advantage over Beşiktaş, and it seemed to be in kind of cruise control, if we're going to be realistic about everything. But nonetheless, certainly to cement their position over Galatasaray, they would have wanted 3 points, and they gave it their all right from the get-go. But before I start to even talk about that, I will, of course, talk about the lineup in this match. Loris Karius, disgruntled keeper, but effective, perhaps nonetheless, was there in the goal with Domagoj Vida and Nicolas Isimat Mirin on the back line. Isimat, or Isi Miran, as we like to call him around here, making his re-entry into the squad. Interesting choices on the flanks this week. Gökhan Gönül played on the right side with Gary Medel on the left. In the midfield, we had Dorukhan Tokuz and Atiba manning the back of the midfield, with Adem Ljajic back in the number 10 role that he's probably more comfortable in. Caner Erkin played on the left side of the midfield. Another little surprise, perhaps, with Jermaine Lens on the right. Quaresma was unavailable. He's got some injury issues, which we actually discussed in the last episode of the podcast. He was diagnosed with being a month out. That was already maybe a week and a half, perhaps even 2 weeks, if we're being generous. But yeah, and then of course the man up front was Burak Yilmaz, the striker who has been most effective since joining the team. I won't say too much about Başakşehir's lineup besides the fact that Mert Gunak was starting in their goal. Robinho started for them up front. Emre Belözoğlu in the middle of their midfield, manning their midfield, if you will. And that would be something to note, certainly. And with that said, I'll get into it and cue the stadium sound. Thank you yet again, Emre Hasturk, and I will continue to give you shouts out for these because they're fantastic. Okay, so let's get to business, shall we? The business end of this portion of the episode where I talk about what happened somewhat briefly, but in order to set up the analysis, to refresh memories as far as the game goes, or in some cases, perhaps for those who were unfortunate enough maybe not to see the match, to give them a sense of what happened. So the match got underway, and immediately Başakşehir looked good. Beşiktaş looked good early on, but like very early on. But Başakşehir seemed to dominate the match most of that first half. Caner Erkin, I mean, the moment of note would be Caner Erkin getting a yellow card in the 19th minute. And I think Karius making countless big saves, one after the other. One on a shot by Edin Visca, which he cut in and fired it sort of point blank on a nice little cross into him. Another save he made on an Atama header, which was perhaps not as difficult. And then the final sort of big save in that sequence was a shot by Elia on a little cross from Edin Visca, which Elia floated in kind of very accurately over the keeper's head, and Karius dove, reaching full stretch to save. So Karius kind of capped a nice stretch of keeping Beşiktaş in the match and keeping Başakşehir at 0 goals. Jermaine Lens would then smash Emre Belözoğlu in the face by accident, I think. They both went up for a header. Emre was behind him, so I don't think Jermaine Lens could really see him, although there was perhaps a little poetic justice for anyone who knows about Emre Belözoğlu's supposedly racist history, so that the fact that Jermaine Lens could be the one who would be delivering that decisive elbow to his face. Emre Belözoğlu would look like he was just about dead for a good minute or two. He lied around on the pitch, kind of spun around, and really, like, looked like he'd gone limp, like it was looking dire, and yet somehow he came right back into the match unscathed. But in that process, on the ensuing counter, I guess you could say, but on the free kick, and the lead into that, there was a cross out to Edin Visca on the right side, and he put it in perfectly for Robinho, who was charging in. The ball went in behind the defense, right under Karius. He might have done a little better, but given all the saving he'd done up to that point, it seemed like it'd be inevitable that something would get by eventually. And there it was. Beşiktaş was down 1-0 in the first half. And so, yeah, 35 minutes in, it's not looking good. Beşiktaş is down against a nemesis that they've often been down against over the last 4 years with Şenol Güneş in charge. I was reminded on Twitter that he actually won his first match in charge against Başakşehir and hasn't won since. But so, yeah, you don't want to be down a goal given that. And yet, just 7 minutes later, in the 42nd minute, on a corner kick, Adem Ljajic, who'd been looking dangerous from the flanks, up to that point, although Beşiktaş didn't get much of the ball in the attacking area in the third zone, as it was referred to last week by a guest questioner. But yeah, Adem Ljajic took a corner. Gökhan Gönül got to it, diving in. The shot was on goal. Saved well by Mert Günok, but not well enough in that he put it right into the path of Atiba Hutchinson, who smashed it into the top corner of the net. Hutchinson, as I like to call the man, equalizing in a huge scenario before they go into the halftime break. That's a huge moment for the club, morale-wise, for those 11 guys out there on the pitch, to go into the half knowing that things are back on equal terms, that they've kind of they've bent but not broke, you could say, especially given the comeback by scoring. Huge moment for the team. In the 3rd minute of extra time, ending the first half, Burak Yılmaz would earn himself a yellow card, meaning that he's now 1 yellow card away from a match suspension. So that's something to be paying attention to going into the Galatasaray match. They go into the break at halftime with a 1-1 scoreline, perhaps undeserved if we're being realistic. Başakşehir had a sort of masterful first half, and it wasn't looking particularly good, although, of course, after scoring a goal, momentum was perhaps shifting in Beşiktaş's favor. Of course, everyone was eager to see if that would pan out long term. And sure enough, right out of the gates, Beşiktaş looked more lively, certainly more soulful, to repeat a theme that Kaan and I have been bringing up throughout the season. In the 52nd minute of the match, again, coming from the flanks, nice play from the middle. I think Dorukhan might have sent it out to Gökhan Gönül. Gökhan Gönül then crossed it in, you could say accurately. It was a little bit behind Jermaine Lens, but Jermaine Lens did very well to connect with it. He flicked it on behind him beautifully on a one-touch into the path of Burak Yılmaz, who then slided it home with perfection into the top of the net. Just slammed it into the top of the net. I mean, nothing the keeper could have done. Mert Günok might have had a good match all around if we're going to try to fairly assess his play, but the 2 goals scored against him, he could do nothing about. The first goal he saved, and Atiba got on the rebound. The second goal, Burak Yılmaz just really couldn't have put that in better. And there it was. Beşiktaş then was in the lead, 2-1. A huge moment. They'd fully turned the tide, looked to have dominated looked to have really taken control of this match and begun to dominate, the goal being the fruits of that labor. In the 61st minute, Shinji Kagawa would come into the game for Gary Medel, who would then shift everything around. John Air coming back, Adam Leach onto the wing, and then Shinji Kagawa into the 10 slot.
Çıkan oyuncumuz altın numara formasına girmeden gelen oyuncumuz 23 numara formasıyla Shinji Kagawa.
In the 65th minute, Arda Turan would enter the match for Irfan Kahveci. In the 72nd minute, Demba Ba would enter the game for Elia, and a return to Beşiktaş grounds. In the 76th minute, Emre Belözoğlu would get himself a yellow card, probably deserved one earlier, and so it may have been his second if a ref had been paying more attention to some of his antics. But anyway, that's what it was. In the 84th minute, Jermaine Lens would come out of the match for Guven Yalçın. In the 87th minute, Napoleoni would come into the match for Robinho, scored earlier, of course. At some point, there was a header that Dorkan put in, another beautiful corner from Adem Ljajic, saved well by Mert. That time he matched it. Not a whole lot of action beyond that, very late into the game. So it was an oddly comfortable match after the goal. Beşiktaş looked to be holding the ball well, possessing it intelligently. It was calm. It was not the sort of heart attack inducing type of stuff Beşiktaş fans would have been used to over the years. But of course there would be a moment, and sure enough, in extra time, Mosoro would get a shot on goal. Isimat Mirin would dive onto it, deflecting it. It would then deflect off of Vida's chest into the path of Loris Karius, who could have probably deflected it into the goal, if we're honest, because he misjudged it. It was bouncing around like a pinball. It went through his legs, but not dangerously. Luckily, it trickles out of bounds. The ensuing corner kick would be punched out of zone, and that would be it for the match. Beşiktaş winning 2-1. So, before I talk about the repercussions of that, of course, I'm going to hand the keys over to Kaan and Ozcan for analysis. But even still, before I even go there, there's one more aspect of all of this that I have to go over, and that's the stats. Statistically, this match signals an interesting, let's say, theme that I've pointed out before, and I think Kaan has echoed. Shots were in Beşiktaş's favor, 15-13 on target, 6-5. Not a huge difference. Possession went to Başakşehir, 54% to Beşiktaş's 46%. Of course, the fact that Beşiktaş is ahead for some of this match helps. But of course, on the flip side of that, Beşiktaş is behind for some of this match as well. So, there's something to be said for the possession again, when Beşiktaş is capable of playing on the counter, when their opposition is talented enough that Beşiktaş in some ways kind of has to rely on their ability to play on the counter, they're oddly more effective. Interesting. Passes completed, 398 by Beşiktaş. Başakşehir's 477. But accuracy went to Beşiktaş at 78% to their 76%. Fouls committed, Başakşehir at 18, Beşiktaş committed 16, 2 yellow cards apiece, one offside in this whole match committed by Başakşehir. So again, none by Burak Yilmaz. This aberration continues. And Beşiktaş had 10 corners to Başakşehir's 4. And that has a lot to do with Beşiktaş's success. That's it for the stats themselves. I'll do my little bit of analysis of the stats before I hand it all over to Kaan. Interesting that Beşiktaş was that effective. They managed to get 10 corners despite having less of the ball overall. And that had a lot to do with their success. Of course, Ljajic had an assist off a corner. Nearly had another one later on with Dorukhan. And his sort of the kind of practice routine that developed, because they were getting so many opportunities to take those corners, definitely contributed to their success ultimately. And yeah, Adem Ljajic looked incredibly sharp all around crossing the ball today, particularly on those corners. So, goes to show you can have as much of the ball as you want, but if you're giving up key positions and corner kicks, spot kicks, free kicks, that's all it takes sometimes. So an intelligent game by Beşiktaş, and Şenol Güneş finally breaks the spell of poor matches against Abdullah Avcı, unlocks the, treasure chest that is defeating Başakşehir this year in a season where that's truly a feat, where they really do perhaps even have more individual talent on the pitch than Beşiktaş, although that's probably debatable, and I don't even want to go there. But anyway, yeah, Beşiktaş wins 2-1. The stats reflect, again, Beşiktaş having success playing on the counter, and perhaps, Burak Yilmaz, right? That man is efficient up front, and sometimes that's all it takes. That and a few free kicks and the like. But so, yeah, that's all I have to say for this match, and I don't want to say anything analysis-wise because I'm going to let Kaan and Ozcan take it away.
Hi everyone, I'm back, but not with Sinan. Sinan will be recording a segment for this week's episode, and I'm joined here by Ozcan from Scotland. You've all met him before. He's been on a previous episode, of course. Ozcan, thanks for joining me for this short little segment.
No bother at all, man. It's a pleasure.
And we're just going to be talking a little bit about the Beşiktaş against Başakşehir match. I wanted to make sure that I let my voice be heard this week because I haven't been on for a couple episodes. Just conflicting scheduling, unfortunately. But today we're coming off a great win against league leaders Başakşehir. Of course, it's still an 8-point gap. So with 6 matches remaining, even if we win everything, I think it's unlikely that they'll drop 9 points, but you never know. But in terms of our battle for second place, this could be interesting because, of course, tomorrow Galatasaray are playing away at Fenerbahçe, Ozcan, and they haven't won there in literally 20 years. It's been literally since the previous century, 1999. Were you even born then, Ozcan?
I was 1 year old.
You were born in 98?
Yeah, 98, so I was 1 year old. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Right, Fenerbahçe have been pretty poor this season, as we all know, but they always find a way to get a result in Derby, so I'm sure they'll do us a favour tomorrow.
Yeah, we've seen their resilience in derby matches. Came back from a 2-0 in Turk Telekom Arena to draw 2-2. Came back from a 3-0 against us in a very painful 3-3 draw for us, of course. That just one of the many matches in which we threw away 2 precious points that at this stage of the season could have probably seen us in the middle of the title race had we not dropped so many points in these types of matches. But good performance from the team all in overall the 90 minutes. I think we started off really well. Our first opening 10-15 minutes were incredible. I haven't seen us make such a great start against Başakşehir. I can't remember the last time I saw us make such a start. We put so much pressure on them. We really tried to squeeze the life out of them, and we managed to keep it up for about 15 minutes. But then Başakşehir took over, and they bossed us for quite a while until they scored, which was a little bit bizarre situation because Emre went down after a contact that seemed like nothing happened really, but he went down acting like he got smashed in the face, and he was even carried off the pitch, injured, and let his arm hang off the how do you call those things that people get carried off on? Stretchers. Yeah. It was like he was totally out of it, and then 2 minutes later he's back on the pitch like nothing happened, and you'd expect maybe he gets subbed off at halftime, but no, he played the entire match. So just playing some real grade A acting there. But then in that moment where he was off the pitch, they actually capitalized on, I don't know, confusion in our ranks or something, and scored a really brilliant goal. And when you go down 1-0 against a team like Başakşehir, Ozcan, it's always going to be tough. We've scraped by draws in recent years. I mean, I think last year it was that we got a last-minute equalizer, right?
Their goal was last minute as well. Like Kerim scored in like the 89th minute, and then
you're
got
right.
headed up,
and then Duško scored in added time. But we struggled a lot against this team, and it's really Şenol has been Şenol Güneş's bane to play against Abdullah Avcı. It's really been his black beast, his biggest issue as a Beşiktaş coach. This is the one man that he has been unable to properly conquer, so to speak. And today changed to that, and I think the most important thing was a tactical change that we already saw last week against Rize. I liked the 3-man back line last week, and I know Sinan said last week we didn't really play with a 3-man back line, but you could see it clearly today again, where Mirin, Vida, and Medel were really the 3-men at the back, and then Caner and Gökhan were very offensive wing backs. So basically playing a 3-6-1 or whatever you want to call it, or a 3-4-3. But in possession, we were very offensive with those wingbacks, and we had to shift away from that when Medel got injured, of course, and Kagawa took his place in the second half. But our first half performance, I was impressed at times by us in the opening 15 minutes, and the last 5 minutes or so we were good, I thought. But for about half an hour, Başakşehir were also really impressive, and you could see why they're so high on the table, and just the amounts of passes they managed to string together under pressure, and just the type of football they're playing. At times, it's really impressive to watch. But in the second half, we score really early, a fantastic goal by Burak Yilmaz. I knew, Ozcan, of course, you've been a huge proponent of Burak Yilmaz since, I think since he came back to Trabzon, you've been one of the most vocal people that I've known about, hey, we should get this guy. But of course, our fan base was very anti-Burak at the time, and very reluctant in getting him, even at the beginning of the season. And you know what? That's perhaps the fan base damaging the club a little bit, because who knows what could have been had we gotten Burak at the beginning of the season, Ozcan.
Even in 2017, the news came out that we'd agreed terms with him, but then obviously the big backlash from quite a big portion of the support, to be honest, on Twitter especially, and that made the board go against it. Like, the way I look at it is, obviously it's not as simple as this, but the Grado last season, 31 appearances, 7 goals in the league. Burak Yilmaz, 10 appearances since joining in January, 8 goals. Huge difference. He scored more goals than him.
I mean, Burak is a natural-born goal scorer, and if we look at our history, our recent, let's say, the last 5 years or so, he's by far only second to Mario Gomez. He's only second to him, and I think that's. I mean, we've had some good strikers in the last couple of years with Abu Bakar, with Dembaba in his prime still. Abu Bakar, of course, and Cenk was in a great form for us as well. And Burak is head and shoulders above those guys, I think, but only second to Mario Gomez, in my opinion. I think. I know maybe you have a differing opinion, but I think
Gomez is great, but if Burak keeps scoring at this rate, it'll be hard to say that Gomez is like. Obviously, Gomez is a better player, all in all. Like, I mean, he's won boots in Bundesliga and stuff like that. Played the Champions League finals, but
won the Champions League.
If you just look at the performances for Beşiktaş, if Burak keeps going like this, it'll be hard to say that Gomez is definitely better. But obviously, career-wise, Gomez is the better player. You can't argue that.
At the end of the day, I think it gets decided as well what you win. What do those goals get you? Mario's goals got us a title, the first one since 2009. Burak's goals are probably not going to get us anything, except for maybe a second place. But maybe next season. But of course, he'll be a year older. But I do have to say, and you know what? I've made this comparison before, and I'm not comparing talent, but in terms of work ethic, to keep fit, to keep your body fit, to keep sharp, and to keep at the top of your game. I think Burak is very reminiscent of Cristiano Ronaldo. You know, they're both 34 years old. I think Cristiano is a little bit older than Burak because I believe he's from 1984 and Burak's from 85. Year of birth. But there's a lot of parallels there in terms of how sharp they still are Burak's 34 years old. That's pretty old already. But he doesn't look like he's slowing down yet. I mean, in past years, the only thing really that's kept a damper on him has been injuries. But in terms of when he's 100% fit, he's still one of the most lethal strikers. He's probably right now the best striker in the league, and that includes Mbaye Diagne, who's on 26 goals already. Ozcan, would you agree with that?
I definitely agree with it. I think he's the best. Like, in this era, he's not just the best striker at the moment. He's the best of this era in fucking football. Obviously, Mario Gomez. You could have to make Gomez and stuff like that, but Wagner loves teasing at Alanya as well. But no one has done it for as many years as Burak has.
No, yeah,
he's a hacker,
of course. Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can't argue that. I think Mario Gomez has been only here for 1 year. Had he been here for 5 years, maybe I think things could be very different then, and probably would be, because I mean, like you said, he's a different level of player. I mean, Mario Gomez at his prime is a world-class striker. I don't think Burak was ever at that. I don't think he was ever world-class, but he's definitely a level beneath that. Like, he's really good. He's not the best finisher in the world, but he gets in those positions very consistently, and that's been throughout his career ever since he's 25, 26 years old, when he really got put into that striker role at Trabzonspor. He's, I think, one of the most consistent strikers that gets in those scoring positions, and he might not always score, he might not always be the most lethal finisher, although at Beşiktaş now he's been tremendous in that regard. I mean, there was a couple of chances maybe last week or so where I actually didn't think he played a particularly good game last week against Rizespor, but he gets his goal. And today he worked very hard. He didn't get any chances except for that one chance, and he took it and he scored. And that's what you need to do as a striker, of course. And the fantastic goal. The technique on that. But credit to Gökhan Gönül, who was amazing. Yeah,
I think actually Lens gets a assist on that one. I don't even know if he meant it.
Was it Leitch?
I think it was.
It
Who
might
can't play
be.
that? I think it was Lens kind of played it, like kind of backheeled it back. It looks like.
Let me take a quick look at who got the assist, but I do have to say credit to Gökhan Gönül regardless, because he had an amazing game, and so did Atiba, and so did Dorukhan. Dorukhan was tremendous. And you're right, it's Jermaine Lens who got the assist, actually. That's good, because actually, in my opinion, in this match, when you look at the performances of individuals in this game, I think Lens had one of the more quiet games, and everyone made the point last week too that he really didn't do much useful. But I think I would like to temper that a little bit. Yes, he's less involved maybe, but if you look at Lens played and Gökhan shines, when Quaresma plays, Gökhan is always, kind of diminished down to just giving him the ball and that's it. And how many times does he overlap but doesn't get the ball? Now he gets it almost every time, and he makes so many. He gets to the touchline so frequently now, and he's really dangerous in those positions. Now he didn't get an assist. I thought he did, but he didn't. But yeah. And Laic today, I think Başakşehir did really well at neutralizing him for the most part. But it's just those corners of his were, I think every single one of his corners from the right-hand side, and were at least 5 or 6, were absolutely lethal. I think Mert had to make 2 really good saves, including one on our goal. And then there were a couple of headers that just went wide, and a couple of very important blocks by their defense. And yeah, those outswinging corners from Laic, they already got us a goal last week. The opener from Vida against Rize, and again here, super dangerous, really putting Başakşehir under pressure every single time. And you know what? You can get a lucky corner once in a while that troubles a well-organized side like Başakşehir. And of course, they didn't have Alexandru Eprianu. That's important for them. But still, he is so important. I mean,
in the back, killing me the box.
Yeah, he's really important for them, both on offensive and defensive set pieces. Of course, we know that because we conceded our game against them earlier in the season. We lost it 1-0. That was an Epriano goal, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't think it was from a corner, but I can't remember that one.
I think it was Epriano, or maybe that was last season. But
I don't think it was a header. It was from a corner, but I think the ball actually came down.
I'm not sure. Remember, I'm pretty sure it was Epriano, but it doesn't really matter though. I mean, the point is still that even when he wasn't there, Başakşehir are probably the most organized team defensively in the league. I mean, there's little to argue that they had only conceded 14 goals before they played us in 28 games, so 27 games, I guess. So incredibly solid defensively, and to basically put them in so much jeopardy on every single corner, I think that's very commendable, and that goes to show that there's time being spent on that, but also that those balls from Laic are real quality. That's another thing that everyone said last week, like, we'll miss Quaresma because, maybe he won't have he doesn't always have the best games against Başakşehir, but he has his corners and stuff like that. And you can see Laic, I don't know if everyone said that live, but I remember him saying it either in the group or live, and yeah, Laic's corners have been great too. So hopefully he keeps that up.
It'll be interesting who takes the corners when Quaresma comes back from injury.
Yeah, but Quaresma's still out for at least a week or two, I think. And
I read something today that they're trying to get him back for the Ankara game.
What do you think about Laic? Has he claimed the spot as one of the leading figures in the squad at this point?
100%. I think he's been running away with it since the second half of the season began. He showed glimpses in the first half of the season, especially in the game against Ankara. They played in commentary, but I think he's been pretty consistent.
Yeah, that was his coming out party, really. But what do you think about his? He kind of had a slower start with us. But do you think that's down to the fact that again Şenol Güneş has this annoying tendency of really easing new players into the team, and we needed a number 10 so desperately at the beginning of the season, and then we got him on, was it deadline day or near deadline day, and then. Yeah, but then it took so long for him to really get a starting position in the team, and then he was on the bench, and he started on the second half. I think that's really been a problem, and we say maybe if we had Burak since the beginning of the season, but perhaps if we had Laic playing since the beginning of the season, that could have changed things too.
I still think Burak's a big factor. I mean, he said it himself last week. He said if Burak was here since the start of the season, they could have been in a very different place just now. That he said it himself. Obviously, for a number 10, it's very important to who they have playing in front of them. That's how I feel.
Yeah, of course, 100% agree. But
I know Yalçın tries his best and stuff like that, and he's had a few good performances, but he's got Burak Yilmaz.
No, of course. I mean, he's 20 years old, and look where Burak Yilmaz was when he was 20 years old. He wasn't the player he was when he was 27, 28. It's a huge, the jury's still out on Güven, hat trick or not last week. We'll have to wait and see. But again today, gets in a good scoring position. Unfortunately, heads it wide, but he's getting in the positions. And that's the same thing I just said earlier about Burak. That's the most important thing. He consistently gets in positions, and Güven does seem to have a little bit of a knack for that as well. So who knows? In 3, 4, 5 years' time, maybe Güven can be defining himself as the man of his era. But jury's still out on that. I'm not convinced yet.
That misheader could have been very costly for us. Like, they had a very dangerous position, not that long after that, right at the end of the game.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of bounced off. I think it took 2 deflections, I'm sure. And
do you mean right at the end? The position right at the end?
I'm sure. I think it kind of bounced off Vida and then Miren and then...
Yes, yeah. Vida and then through Karius' legs, but it deflected it out. And that's also something that definitely should be mentioned. Karius had a fantastic game. He made some amazing saves, especially in the first half, because he didn't really have much to do in the second half. And got a little bit lucky there at the end, but perhaps that's kind of what he had worked so hard for and kind of deserved to get a little bit lucky there.
I mean, it took a double deflection. It was always going to be a hard ball for him.
Mm-hmm.
In such a close range as well.
Plus, how unjust would it have been if we had conceded there? Because that was well into the 5th minute of additional time already, and there was only 4 minutes added on. And at 94, like when like literally the clock was 94 minutes and 0 seconds, we had the ball in midfield, and it was kind of like being, like a pinball machine going around in midfield. But at that point, ref should just finish the game. I mean, there's nothing that happened in that extra time. Yes, there was a sub. Burak came off for Laren in the 93rd or 90 so. But still, I mean, there wasn't any time wasting there. He went off quickly. There's no need to add an additional minute there. And I can't help but feel if the roles were reversed that we wouldn't have gotten that extra minute. And you know what? I mean, I was a little disappointed with Cüneyt Çakır here. Not that he made any massive decisions that had an impact on the match, but they very well could have. We had a position early on in the match where Burak was brought down, and the replay showed it was clearly a foul on him, because I think it was Atama who left his foot hanging and brought him down at the edge of the box. And that could have been a really dangerous free kick, because it was in a similar position as where Laiç scored from last week against Rizespor. And there were just throughout the match these little 50-50 things, and as soon as Başakşehir went a goal up, but even before that, but every time there was some contact, bam, they went down and they acted like they got hit by a shotgun or something. Like I said earlier, that Emre basically faking being gravely injured, getting stretchered off, and then they score out of that confusion, because I really think that played a role in that goal. Because it was right after that when we had the ball, we just gave it back to them, out of gentlemanlik, and they score out of that. And then he comes back on the field and nothing, as if nothing happened, and he was playing a great game otherwise. And great game, I mean, he played his match, making lots of tenacious falls, playing hard, like nothing happened. So why on earth did you get stretchered off, man? I didn't get it at the time either, because they were in a good flow and they were playing well, and then he basically, I thought, took the tempo out of the match by doing that. But then they score, so I'd almost think it was deliberate and it was like something they practiced or something, like I don't know, like a distraction or something.
Apart from Emre going down, I think it was like 3 of our defenders were thrown off by Elia's run across.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of left Robinho himself. Like, I don't think 3 players should be drawn to one run like that. It was a wee bit of a defensive error, to be honest.
Yeah, but it was a great run by Robinho. But it was too easy again. I think we've seen that throughout the season, that we're conceding a little bit too easy, and we have to give credit where credit is due. Right before their goal, they had like 2 or 3 big chances where Karius came up big, and at the end of the day, I don't know if it changed much, because perhaps had they scored earlier, I mean, I think it's always the type of thing with a team like Başakşehir. They're gonna take the foot off the gas pedal a little bit once they get that first goal, because they're so confident in their organization. And yeah, we probably got lucky that we scored that equalizer on the corner in the 42nd minute, and that changed the game in our favor, because so many times we just didn't have that type of luck. But a great goal, a great outswinging corner again by Laic. I think it was Gökhan who heads it. Mert makes a good save, and then Atiba really jumping on the chance and scoring his 4th goal in the season. That's the most he's ever scored in a single season for us.
It's actually Noah's 4th birthday today as well, and he scored his 4th goal of the season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's. I mean, he's 36 years old, going on 37 now. Do you think he deserves another year with us?
Well, his second half performance, second half of the season performance, I think so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
we always say, is a sub and stuff like that, but then he always seems to get his way back into the top 11. Yeah. We do really need a replacement. It's not going to last forever, you know what I mean? He's not going to play every game at top level, especially in Europe.
Yeah, for sure, but I think he's still got a season in him, perhaps. And that's another one of those big differences with the first half of the season. We didn't have Atiba. We did, but we didn't, He wasn't registered for Europe. It took a while before he got back into the team in the league even. And Dorkan has been a second half of the season discovery. I mean, okay, kind of towards the end of the first half of the season, but he's really a new face and new energy in that team. Atiba coming back is a change. Miran now coming in, that's a change, a significant one too. Burak, like you mentioned, Laic firing on all cylinders. That's 4 or 5 guys that really made a difference. And it's a shame that we didn't have those factors in the first half of the season, because I think it's important for people to realize that how poorly we performed in that first half of the season. 26 points. Look, if we had only gotten 6 points more, then you only have 32 points, which is still mediocre for a title contender in 17 games. But imagine if we got those 6 points, then we would be only 2 points out right now, and we'd be probably favorites after this match, because but yeah, anyway, that's lots of ifs and buts. Unfortunately, it's probably not gonna happen for us this season. Hopefully we can keep this team together a little bit, freshen up, get some new players in, but things are gonna be difficult, of course, financially. We'll have to wait and see how things go. But there's definitely some brightness and some light at the end of the tunnel, hopefully, for us. And maybe a Champions League qualifier ticket. But much will depend on tomorrow, I think. Galatasaray, if they don't win, that would be a moral blow to them, I think. Because now they have a golden opportunity. If they win tomorrow, they're within 3 points of Başakşehir. And they still have a match in hand against Başakşehir at Türk Telekom Arena. So we basically offered one of our biggest rivals the title on a silver platter today. Would you agree with that?
I wouldn't like to look at it that way. I think Başakşehir will win tomorrow, and I mean, we need to look at ourselves. We weren't in second at least, so I think Başakşehir will at least get a point tomorrow, and we'll have a good chance of second, hopefully. Obviously, we go away as well to Türk Telekom Arena.
Yeah. And Ilka brought up an interesting point as well, where he thinks we're kind of in an advantageous position, because for a while now we've been focusing on that second place. And of course I'm talking about Ilka Tunala, who's someone who also helps us out with on Twitter and stuff like that. So shout out to you, Ilka, if you're listening. But he made that interesting point that because we've been focusing on that second place for a while now, if Galatasaray messes up tomorrow, we'll probably have the moral high ground. Well, not the moral high ground, but the mental superiority in the sense that for them it will be a devastating blow to lose that great opportunity to close the gap on Başakşehir, and not many opportunities will likely present themselves again in the last 6 games of the season for them. Whereas for us, that's probably an additional mental boost. So I think if Galatasaray doesn't win tomorrow, it could be very detrimental for their morale going forward.
Yeah, definitely. I think they've got their sights set on the title. So it'll be a massive mental blow for them to drop points after our result today.
But we shouldn't forget, Trabzonspor continue to win too. They won away on Friday 1-0 against Bursaspor, and they continue to breathe down our necks, still only 4 points behind. And let's not forget, we still have to go to Trabzon. So we're doing really well right now. We've won a bunch of games in a row now. I think this is probably our longest winning streak. How many games?
It's 4 games in a row winning it. It's our longest.
Yeah, that's the longest winning streak this season, because I think the previous one was 3 games.
we hadn't been winning 3 games in a row until Bursa Malatya stretch, and then obviously we had the back-to-back draws, Fenerbahce and Kayserispor, and now we've won 4 games in a row since then. I mean, we've not lost in the whole second half of the season.
Yeah, true.
We're doing well.
We were the only one, together with Başakşehir, and I think Galatasaray too. So 3 teams, that were still unbeaten. Rizespor were another, but they got beaten by Fenerbahce, and then us, of course, last week. And then Trabzon have, of course, lost to Başakşehir already, so they lost their first game of the second half of the season. But still, though, we're looking forward to second place. Hopefully, we can lay claim to that, but at the same time, we can't forget about the Hamsiler breathing down our necks, because they're still very much in contention, and the top 4 is pretty much decided. It's really pretty much now about dividing those places. Trabzon firmly in 4th place right now. We're pretty firm in 3rd, and then Galatasaray is pretty firm in 2nd. If they win tomorrow, they're still 5 points in front of us. But if they draw, it's only 3 points. If they lose, it's only 2 points. So Galatasaray still play Başakşehir. They still play us. Both of those matches are at home. That's definitely advantageous for them. But like I said, if tomorrow they can't win, that'll be a mental blow for them. So it's going to be interesting, these last 6 matches, for sure.
Yeah, I'd like to think we'll beat Trabzon away. I mean, in recent years it's been quite easy for us anyway. Well, apart from that 4-3 game.
Yeah.
I think since Beşiktaş's time we've won away there every year.
I think the thing with Trabzon is mainly they're a good team. They have a good mix of young, energetic talent, and they've got a couple of good, decent players like Hugo Radayega. Antonin Wakaeme is really good. Of course, we know him from Beersheva. He played and scored against us for them. And he scored against us too at Vodafone Park for Trabzon, of course, a stunning goal, if I remember correctly. And then, of course, Jose Sosa. But I think we saw that against Başakşehir, that when they play in big games, they can't really cope with it. Maybe it'll be different now because they're not in contention for the title anymore, but you really saw against Başakşehir that the nerves kind of got to them. So hopefully that'll happen again when they play us, but I think the circumstance will be a little bit different. But anyway, Ozcan, I want to thank you very much for joining me for this brief little segment, giving your thoughts on the match, on the remainder of the season, and what's going to happen. So thank you very much.
Cheers, man. It was a pleasure.
Yeah. And thank you all for listening, of course.
Okay, that is it. Thanks again to Ozcan for spelling me, having a bit of a chat with Kaan post-match. Of course, thanks to Kaan, but I don't need to say that he is, in fact, still the co-host, and I'm sure we'll get an episode together one of these days. Shouts to everyone for being studious and unavailable. That's the right kind of excuse in my books. Always here for personal advancement at the Black Eagles podcast. Before I close out, I will quickly do a final recap of the tables, as this will be released post the big Sunday derby between Galatasaray and Fener, which ended 1-1 in dramatic fashion. Fener went down a man. Skirtel took a nasty blow to the head. Probably should have been taken out of the game, and maybe even the match stopped for it, but that was not the case, and certainly not in the rule book. And so you can't really complain about what happened next. Galatasaray scores being essentially with a two-man advantage at that point. But very quickly thereafter, Fener equalized by Eljif Elmas, the young man, his second goal with Fener ever. So not particularly good season for him, but a big goal and a big moment for them. They get the draw. Galatasaray ends with only 1 point, so Beşiktaş picks up 2 on them. And so let me tell you about the standings. As you know, Başakşehir is still on top, but Beşiktaş cut into that lead they had and is now only, we could say only, 8 points back. Galatasaray is also only 5 points back, although better than 6, I guess we could say. So yeah, Galatasaray still within reach, and I guess technically they picked up a point on Başakşehir since Beşiktaş managed to get the full 3. You can thank us for that, Galatasaray. But yeah, they're still 5 points back. Beşiktaş is now only 3 points back on Galatasaray, so they'd better watch out. But so yeah, is the season fully, is Beşiktaş back in title contention? No, I don't think we can say that. Certainly 8 points in 6 matches is asking for a lot. Başakşehir does still have to play some tough opposition, but you can't really expect to turn the tides that much. What can be said is that Galatasaray is now very much in reach, and Beşiktaş, because there are still a couple matches between when Beşiktaş faces Galatasaray, they could implode enough, and I think only getting a point against 10-men Fener is a signal of that implosion. They could implode enough that division, that split between Beşiktaş and Galatasaray points-wise could be very minimal by the time we face each other. If Beşiktaş is even behind, we could be level on points with Galatasaray by then. It's not an unreasonable expectation. Kaan already spoke about who they're playing in the coming matches and who Beşiktaş will be playing. So I don't want to repeat anything, but so yeah, stay tuned to the season. Stay tuned to Beşiktaş. Stay tuned to us here at the Black Eagles podcast, as always. And sure enough, we will be back. Beşiktaş has some key matches ahead, with just 6 matches left to play. Next week, Beşiktaş will be playing Sivasspor. It's a Monday match, 1 p.m. here in New York City, Eastern Standard Time. For those of you in Istanbul, I believe that means that's a 7 p.m. match for you guys, 6 p.m. for Kaan in Central Europe. Again, check your local listings, because with daylight savings time being optional and being sort of conditionally applied regionally, I can't really speak to what time anything is anywhere. I can say, though, that here in New York it will be 1 p.m. So you can do the math and figure that out for yourselves. Sivasspor is, competition. We gotta win, no matter who we're playing against. But so yeah, do stay tuned for that. As always, follow us on Twitter at Eagles_podcast. Follow the mothership, the mother load, at Beşiktaş_INT for all the latest news on Beşiktaş 24/7. Of course, follow Kaan on Twitter at Razerian, RAZZERIAN. Follow me as well. Why not, right? At Sir_Writes_a lot. Follow our other host for the week, Mr. Ozcan Oğur, at OzcanBey98, OZCANBEY98. And yeah, let everyone know about the sensation that is the Black Eagles podcast. See you guys next week. Of course. Go Beşiktaş!
Beşiktaş International hopes you enjoyed this program.